Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to come from the 23rd and 24th chapters from the book of Psalms. And these two, along with its predecessor, can be thought of as a trilogy of shepherd psalms. So in the 22nd, we read that the shepherd dies for the sheep, which also he said he would do in John 10, 17, and 18. And in 23, the one we're going to be beginning with today, can be best be thought of as the shepherd who lives for the sheep. And the 24th can be thought of as the shepherd who returns to his father after his ascension. So the 22nd and 24th are Yahshua, who is the good shepherd, and 23 is Yahweh, who is the good shepherd as well. The Son and the Father's attributes and nature mimic each other and are mutually, in most cases, equal with one another. So we've already done the 22nd Psalm. You can type in Corey Johnston Psalm 22 for more on that. Because of the brevity of the remaining two, we're probably going to have enough time to combine them into one lesson. So that being said, we're going to open with the 23rd one, and David is identified as the author in the title, which reads a Psalm of David. So this is one of the 73 Psalms that he wrote, and David literally had the heart of a shepherd because he wasn't raised in royalty. He didn't inherit a throne. He rose to a throne from the shepherd's pen, and what he learned in the shepherd's pen was instrumental for good governance when he became a ruler. In Jewish culture and society, any secular or spiritual leader was referred to as a shepherd, and rightly so for reasons we'll be discussing. So the opening verse reads, "Yahweh is my shepherd, I do not lack." Now the is in the Hebrew original has a present tense, so therefore we by translating that properly, we understand that the shepherd's relationship is ongoing with the shepherd, and the shepherd's work never ends. It literally lasts as long as their own life or the life of the sheep. So it's really a death till death do us part arrangement and agreement. And the fortunate thing for us is our good shepherds are eternal, and that is Yahweh in this one. And he is the source of our every provision, and he provides most abundantly, so we do not lack. And the shepherd's duty was to tend to the welfare and the provisions of their sheep, and our good shepherd does all we need for us. Maybe not everything we like, but everything we truly need. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. So these are two locations which would have been relatable to the shepherd's craft. The green pastures, sheep were pastoral animals, hence the name pastor, and what we've aped from Jewish culture in Christendom is referring to our ministers as pastors, or at least most of them. And still waters would have been a place where they could rest and hydrate. But the leads in the Hebrew original translates as leads gently, and this is appropriate for the sheep because you cannot drive sheep as you do beast of burdens. You have to lead them through their voice, and the shepherd recognizes and responds to the voice of the shepherd, as we read in somewhere in John's 10th chapter, "My sheep know me by my name," and the shepherd knows, he knows the sheep by name. Literal sheep are not intelligent enough to know the shepherd by name, but they certainly know who he is and what he does for them. But humans, we are aware that our good shepherd is Yahshua and Yahweh, respectively. He turns back my being. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So the shepherd would lead them through the path of righteousness, and that is known in the New Testament as the straight and narrow, and broad is the way to death and destruction. We read of in Matthew 7:15, and the shepherd had to lead the sheep, and our outlook will determine our outcome. Now, as humans, we are somewhat similar to sheep in that we have an inherently wayward nature, which is compelled to stray and wander away from what is good for us. But repentance can be thought of as a valid interpretation for turns back my being. Repentance in its etymologically original terms, it was a Roman term for a military term for doing an about face. So repentance signifies a 180 reversal turn in the way we were going to the way we are now. When I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. You are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So the valley of the shadow of death is not literally a shadow of death, although it does have a hellish connotation to it. It refers to any dark place that we may encounter while walking through the maze of life. And because we are assured of his guidance, we have no reason to fear anyone else, because fear of Yahweh is the fear which expels all other fears. And his presence is a source of comfort, and the rod would have been a protective instrument that shepherds carried. They were no ordinary wooden sticks. They were used to get sheep to harm or injure wolves or other carnivorous prey who threaten the flock. You spread before me a table in the face of my enemies. You have anointed me head with oil. So one of the things I should have mentioned, but it's really not too late, is that the plurality of the pronoun changes from this point on. So in the first three verses, we read that he is my shepherd, so he's speaking about the shepherd. Now his gaze is heavenward, and he's speaking to the shepherd. And dialogue with the shepherd is absolutely essential for the sheep and shepherd relationship. And so the fifth verse reads, You spread before me a table in the face of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. So Yahweh's mission is to make friends of the world, which is at war with him and estranged from him. And this is really the tragedy of the human species. But thankfully, our good shepherd also reconciles us and restores us to our heavenly homeland. And oil would have been essential to tend to the wounds, which would have been many and several and multiple every day for sheep, because walking in nature, you inevitably encounter items in nature which can injure your hooves or any other bodily part. And but he does so not only necessarily so, but abundantly so. So he's concerned about more than our mere survival. He wants us to have life and have it abundantly, as the Son tells us in John 10:10. Only goodness and kindness follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Yahweh to the lengths of days. So as this brings us back to the first verse where we spoke of the ongoing relationship between the shepherd and the sheep, and so it's literally a lifetime arrangement, and to have that follow you all the days of your life, that is a life well lived. Now certainly we must go through the valley of the shadow of death, but when we are assured of his guidance and presence, we can count on his protection to deliver us from all evil and brighten the path in the darkness of the world. And the shepherd's relationship with the eternal, the sheep's relationship with the eternal shepherd does not end in life alone, but extends to beyond. So there is the good thing about having an eternal shepherd, eternally living, is that he shares his eternality with us unworthy creatures. That's just the nature of the good shepherd, and the heavenly dimension is appropriate as we transition into the 24th Psalm, which I earlier described as the good shepherd who died in 22, rising and ascending to the right hand of the Father. So David is once more identified as the author of this psalm. A psalm of David is how the title reads, The earth belongs to Yahweh and all that fills it, the world and those who dwell in it. So the creator is not only the controller, but the ruler of the cosmos, and that includes he created the heavens and earth, so his grip is as sure, present, and strong on earth as it is in the vastness of space or the heavens, and no human is not under his watch. For he has founded it upon the seas, and upon the waters he establishes it. So in the creation account in Genesis 1, we read that the world came out of a void, essentially, in Genesis 1:2. Then we read that every day in creation there is a process within the process of creation, and these are orderly arranged according to a wise design. So Elohim, as he's referred to in that chapter, he built the earth originally as a sea, and it wasn't until a day later that he put the continents and then filled the land continents with life form, but he also did that in the sea as well. Who goes up into the mountain of Yahweh, and who stands in his sacred place? This echoes almost verbatim the 15th Psalm, which lays the 15 virtues which are necessary to attain that exalted station. He who has innocent hands and a clean heart, who does not bring his life to naught, and did not swear deceivingly. So innocence, purity, and honesty are the virtues outlined for the humans who wish to be lifted to this sacred place. He receives a blessing from Elohim and righteousness from the Elohim of his salvation. So once we meet that criteria or satisfy the minimum requisites, once we're there, we are blessed, and our salvific righteousness cannot come from us. You can work your fingers dry to the bones, that will not save you, because we all inevitably and invariably sin, and the presence and sight of even a single sin is offensive to him who is without blemish, but thankfully his son paid the penalty for us on our behalves, and all we really have to do is exercise faith in that doctrine. This is the generation of those who seek him, Jacob, who seeks your face, Salah. So David having to overrule during a time which was in a lot of ways a spiritual golden age, because their king on the throne was a man after Elohim's own heart, Acts 13:22, 1 Samuel 15:7 or 4, or 13:14, sorry. But more to the point, the moral decay would set in after the splinter of the kingdom under Solomon as a result of Solomon's idolatry, but at that one glorious moment in time when David ruled, they had a godly king and also godly priest, because there was also the priesthood was equally prone to apostasy, and all flourished because there was secular injustice and spiritual guidance. So not every generation of Jacob sought the face of Yahweh that his generation did. Lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and let the King of esteem come in. So this describes a royal heavenly palace which is open to and opened by the King of esteem, which can be none other than Elohim. Who is this sovereign of esteem? Yahweh strong and mighty, Yahweh mighty in battle. So the identity of the opener and the one to whom the doors open is identified as Yahweh, who is strong and mighty. He is omnipotent, which is the attribute of unlimited or infinite strength, and mighty in battle. Now, a lot of the warrior images upset a lot of modern-day contemporary Christians who tend to envision God as so purely of peace that the thought, let alone the action of war, is not in him, or he is not capable of such. But we really owe it to ourselves to seek Yahweh in his balanced whole, with all the attributes, and everything we need to know about him is contained in this book from Genesis to Revelation. Lift up your heads, O you gates, even lift up, you everlasting doors, and let the King of esteem come in. Who is the King of esteem? Yahweh of hosts. He is the King of esteem. Salah. So what I neglected to do earlier after the 6th verse, the Hebrew word salah is significant. That indicates a meditative pause on digesting and absorbing the contents you just read. So those are placed there for a reason. But from the 9th and 10th verse, there's little original that hasn't already been said in the predecessor verse. Once more, it is a question asked and answered by he can be none other than the King of esteem, who is in the preceding verse, or the 8th verse, identified as Yahweh, and he is our good shepherd who died for the sheep. He lives for the sheep, and he is our source of exaltation to enjoy eternal fellowship in intimate proximity to the good shepherd who loves us and gives us everything we truly need, and even some things we don't deserve, especially eternal salvation. But it is in his power to provide it to us. It is certainly not in ours, and that is why he is our good shepherd. So that's all the time we have for today. I'm glad you're here. Stay tuned. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.